Malika to so welcome, and we're introducing Malika Ohm. She's a new team member who will be a digital equity advocate for Broadband Consortium. We have a few digital equity initiatives that we are pursuing in partnership with CETF, 3CE, and the FCC. We are working with Malika through her business, The Sakti Effect, to execute on those initiatives. So Malika, would you just introduce yourself, please?
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm Malika. As Shelby mentioned, I'm coming in to help the Broadband Consortium with the digital equity component of all of the wonderful work you guys do. A little bit about myself. I'm based in Santa Barbara. My business is working with different various organizations and small businesses who are launching and hoping to expand. So I do various project management and operational development. My background is in lots of different industries: nonprofit management, small business, higher education, and most recently in cannabis. So lots to learn in this particular scope, but I'm excited to learn and meet all of you all and see the great work you do.
And then I'm also happy to introduce Vivian. If this is a repeat, it's a valuable repeat. Vivian joining our team to work with us on the VPOG LADA project. And she has an extensive background in workforce development. She already works for the EDC, and she's also been working on the digital upskilling project that the EDC has taken on in Ventura County. So she's an incredibly valuable member of our team. Vivian, do you want to take a minute to just introduce yourself?
Sure, thank you. And I think this is actually my first introduction because last time I was just silently listening. So thank you for the opportunity. Hi, everyone. I'm Vivian Vasquez. I work with the EDC. And as Shelby mentioned, my background is in workforce development, and I joined the EDC to work with Jamie Fall on the digital upskilling initiative. So a lot of work related to making sure that the opportunities to build digital skills are accessible to everyone in our communities. I'm based out of Camarillo. And so I'm really excited to be working in this project as well and helping with the Ventura County strategic plan and process throughout this next year and beyond. I'm so excited to bring that perspective of workforce development and digital skills and the importance of that, and also making sure we have the infrastructure so folks can build those skills and also access them as well.
And then, of course, we have the usual BCPC team suspects: Bill Simmons, Michael Foote, and Tim Tierney, and myself. We're all part of your consortium support squad here in the Tri-County area, and happy to be here today. I'm going to go back and review our agenda real quick. We are going to start out with our roundtable discussion. This time, we want to invite everybody on the call to provide an update, any projects you're working on, any challenges you're facing, any questions you have. We'll start with the roundtable discussion to kind of get everyone involved in what we're doing here. And then we have two items to share with you. The first is our municipal toolkit that those of you who work in public agencies might have received an email earlier this week or late last week about the revisions to our municipal toolkit. So we'll go over some of that information. And then we'll talk about the 5-year action plan that the state of California has posted for public comment. I believe it's closed public comment now, to unlock BEAD funding for our state. And then finally close up with an ACP enrollment update for those of you who are interested. So I really want to open up the floor. I'll invite our BCPC members to sort of start the conversation, but anyone on the call, please feel free to raise your hand or just unmute yourself if it's uncomfortably silent for more than 30 seconds and share what it is that you're working on in your area. There's a lot of valuable information just from the participants in this meeting. So please feel free to take a lead. Let us know what county you're in, what part of the industry you're working in, and then feel free to share your updates.
Shelby, I can start if you'd like.
Thanks, Chris.
So Chris Churgwin, CIO for the County of Santa Barbara. We are working with a group called RCRC, which is representing about 30-ish counties in California. And RCRC has filled out our FFA application for, originally it was going to be 3 priority areas, but at the last minute they added a 4th. So they on our behalf have applied for the FFA funding for those 4 regions. And so we're excited about that. All 4 are areas up in North County of Santa Barbara and areas that are either unserved or underserved. So we'll see if the funding gets or if the application gets accepted. But that's the most recent updates from our county.
Shelby, can I add, can I piggyback on Chris? I've got some slides that I can share from our analysis of where our dual route could be if we had enough money.
We would love to see that. Great
Let's see
idea.
if I can navigate this. If you can let me share some. Okay, let's see if this works. Can people see it? Is it big enough? Let me try this. Did that help?
Yep.
Okay, so our analysis, we're trying to finish up in the next 4 to 6 weeks. So the blue area is where we have proposed and done some studies on the costs. And that would be about 101 miles, and we're estimating $562,000 average per mile, $56 million if we could do everything that we want to do. And that, of course, includes getting down into 154 into Santa Barbara. We do have another option. So if I can navigate here. So if we took 154 out and still tried to keep our loops available, then it would be 44.9, and I think that's 77 miles. And then we also looked at just doing 56 miles, getting down to Las Cruces, 56 miles. And then we had 3 options, and we were looking at, let me look at my notes here. We were looking at 3 options on option 2, or 3 scenarios on option 2. And we would have ISP option scenario 1, Golden State Network option 77 miles, or a combination 47 miles and sharing 30. Then we looked at another scenario for 56 miles, just using the Santa Maria down to Las Cruces. Again, 3 scenarios, 56 miles, using ISP, GSN, and a combination of ISPs and GSN. So we're making progress on calculating what the cost would be and the different scenarios, 3 different scenarios, if you will. So that's where we're at right now. So we'll be hopefully finishing up and sharing with the county, SBCAG, BCRC, the consortium. So we're getting really close. So thank you for letting me share those slides.
Gary, thank you for this update. Can you go back one too? I just like to look at the blue line versus the green
Okay, let me
number.
back up one.
There we go. Okay.
Yeah. So
135.
yeah, Santa Maria, down to Las Cruces, 101, then hitting 246, and then a little of Highway 1 connecting with, of course, the purple is the current plans to get to Guadalupe, Casmelia, then coming back through the base on the railroad track, moving down, and then connecting past the pass there and getting into Santa Barbara along that route, primarily the railroad. That's what we understand from the latest, but 166 was the key, as Chris knows from earlier discussions.
Thank you so much for this update. And for those of you who don't know Carrie, he works with Econ Alliance, and Econ Alliance in partnership with Teleworks and the Shumash in Santa Barbara County are conducting the North County Fiber Ring study to determine, it's an EDA funded project. Is that right, Carrie?
That's correct. And then our scenario 77.
And they're looking at different routes to help support building out middle mile networks and opening up last mile opportunities across North County Santa Barbara.
All we need is money, just like everyone else, Chris. Did I stop the share yet?
Now
Nope,
we can
not
still
yet.
see it.
Okay, let's
Carrie, this is really good information. I really appreciate you showing this. And probably is not the right venue, but I would love to maybe after sometime in the near future is talk to you more about, did you break it up into different segments? So like, for example, if you took Highway 246 out, but left everything else in, what would the cost be of that? You know, so I don't know if you broke it down that granularly, but it'd be interesting to see that.
we've got the first 3 chapters done, Chris. So yeah, I think they're doing a really good job at this point. Okay.
Right.
We'll get with you, and we're supposed to be, we hope to get the next chapter, the last chapter in the next couple of weeks, and then review it, and then get ready to publish it. Okay. For the
Sounds
ED.
good.
Thank you. All right, Chris. Okay. Take me away so I don't take over
Okay,
the
I'm gonna, I'll take you away.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you,
Okay.
Carrie. Thanks for the update.
Shelby, I'd like to move on to Ventura County next, if I could. I know that Will Morat's with us, and he from Magellan, and I know he's got a hard stop at the top of the hour, so he could probably just summarize the projects that he's aware of and what's been happening in Ventura County, and then I can round up the conversation talking about VCOG. Will, take it away.
Yeah, thanks, Bill. Thanks, Shelby. There's a couple projects we're working on within the county. One is with the county itself, and another is with the city of San Buenaventura. The county project has been kind of, as you all know, in the works for some time. It's a regional project. We're not calling it middle mile because what we do need is in the county is we need a local distribution network along some of these big long routes to get to the unincorporated areas, some of the more semi-rural areas, some of the agricultural areas where there is a significant number of unserved. So the county's got a project that is just about ready to submit for the FFA grant that would create a connection from along Highway 126 from US 101 over to Interstate 5 and hit approximately 2,400 unserved locations along the way. That project is going to include service drops to connect all those homes as well. And then the city of San Buenaventura is looking to expand their network, particularly to some not just unserved locations, but also some of their more challenging census areas where they have lower income and some additional need. And they're looking at about 900 unserved locations to connect with a grant application. And they are similarly about a day or two ready from being able to submit for those 2 grants. So together, we're looking at more than 3,500 households to be connected that are currently unserved, but also looking at public-private partnerships that are going to bring in, high-speed competitive broadband for everybody who's their neighbor too. So this isn't just about those 35, it's about bringing in a new provider for everyone else. So like everyone else, fingers crossed, let's see how the grant funding goes, but been some good discussions and conversations within the county and with the city of Buenaventura over the last, for the county the last several years, but with the city of Buenaventura, dived in full bore 2 months ago, and they've put together a strong application. So that's about it.
Thank you, Will. And so as everybody recalls, we've received funding for LATA for the VCOG, Ventura Council of Governments, and part of our funding is really dedicated to supporting what Will is talking about, those kinds of initiatives, regional initiatives. And so we have our proposals, our fundraising activities that we're talking about. We have a strategy process that's underway that Vivian is going to be safeguarding and keeping us all aligned and on track in terms of that. And then it'll culminate probably first quarter or so next year in serious discussions about a JPA. And we were gathering all the information, best practices, and benchmarks and needs and requirements in terms of JPA, what that looks like and how that's going to work. And that conversation will kick in the last part of the grant, probably starting in earnest 6 months from now. We convened a working group. That happened, let's see, maybe 2-3 weeks ago at this point. And the working group has representatives of staff from all 10 cities in the county as part of it. We're going to be having another meeting tomorrow afternoon of that group, that august body. We'll be talking about what Will was just talking about, the proposals that are currently underway and what the implications are of that funding and that service and that connection to those communities. But we're also going to be looking at the strategy process, where we're going to be talking about policies. We're going to be later in the agenda, we'll be talking about a municipal toolkit. You know, each municipality will be providing a survey, and that toolkit is ties directly to the survey in terms of things you can do to become broadband ready. We'll be talking about speed testing. We're going to be putting speed testing into place once again. We've had it, but we're going to be reinvigorating it aggressively in the next number of months. To collect data and to validate a lot of the dots on the map that we're talking about. And finally, we're going to be talking about outreach and community engagement. What is it going to take to mobilize community-based organizations to help us with the adoption opportunities that broadband is going to provide? So that's our Ventura County update summary. The group has been convened. We're moving forward. We're on track. And I should mention, following what Will and Chris and Carrie have said, we're 8 days out from the FFA submittal. So this is really a scampering time. And with 8 days, September 29th is when all these proposals go in. We'll take a very brief, short breath, and then we'll continue on doing what we're doing because it's happening very fast. That's my report.
Bill, anyone else want to share any updates from their region, their county, their city, their business?
Shelby, it's Eleanor. I'll jump in. Sorry, I missed the Santa Barbara update earlier. But some of you may know this already, but Cox Communications is putting in an FFA grant as well for South County up to 154. So thank you to everyone who we've been working with for letters of support. Greatly appreciated.
Great. Thanks, Eleanor. I'm happy to have that application going in too. Just as a friendly reminder about FFA, the applications are due September 29th. I was reviewing some information this morning, and they do have, CPUC has up to 180 days to review all of those applications and make awards. That puts us at a decision deadline of March 27th. Now they have been alluding at CPUC to the possibility of having a phase 2 of FFA applications if there's funding left over in any of the counties. And initially, CPUC representatives were hinting at first quarter of 2024. We'll see how that goes. And it's just important to keep these deadlines in mind. So for anyone who needed the reminder, September 29th, 4 p.m., not midnight, not at 5 p.m., 4 p.m. Is the deadline for your FFA applications.
Shelby, George Amendola here. I have a question.
Yes.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone, or almost. I've learned recently, going back to Ventura and Ventura County, that as it relates to Ventura Water, the City of Ventura Water Department services some areas of people who are not actually in residential incorporated City of Ventura. They're in unincorporated Ventura County. And as it relates to the City of Ventura application or the county application, I'm wondering if those are the unserved people, or if those people are being counted in the City of Ventura or within the county. Is there any opportunity to gain some clarification on that?
George, I don't think you can get down to specifics. The data itself, the dots on the map, we do know where those dots are. The application, and I just saw the application portal in the last hour or so, they really are looking for specific addresses.
Okay.
And so when an entity, whether it's the county or whether it is the city, provides those specific addresses that they intend to connect, there's a specific address, whether it's incorporated with or unincorporated. And so there is a clear delineation where those dots exist of who the jurisdiction is, where the geography is.
Okay, so it actually has nothing to do with potential water or service from water.
No.
As far as how you're receiving that data or that list.
No.
Perfect, thank you. Then my next question was about the and I'm sorry, the name. Now, we were for years calling it Middle Mile Network at the county level, but it's being called something else. But the run from Ventura through to Camarillo that we had spoke about many years ago, paralleling the State Water Interconnect, is that still in play?
Proposed report, yes, it's still in play. The reason he didn't call it middle mile is because there's so much more being done in this funding request. I mean, he mentioned the 2400 some odd connections. Well, those are all last mile connections, and so to say that we're asking for funding for the middle mile is not true. And that was the point I think he was making is we're going to be building the middle mile, but we're going to be really focusing a lot more on meeting those disconnected addresses along the way. And it was a pretty good sized number that he had quoted.
I've learned recently that that State Water Interconnect project from Satakoy to the Callegas Camarillo connection.
Yes.
It's going to be moving forward in 2024. And does that line up with the fiber build along that route? Or is that two separate issues entirely for the trenching?
Conceivably, it could line up, in terms of where it is. It's that particular line. I recall from the maps, it's been several years now, but that particular line goes along the same corridor, but that's not going to be part of this project. It's part of a next phase. So, but George, you're accurate in terms of the understanding to make sure that the water folks are talking to the broadband folks, and the potential for a dig once is very much there.
Thank you. There's some issues, right of way issues, I believe, that are being challenged, and I hope that's being discussed as in alignment with the water issues and the trenching in dig once.
Yep. Thank you.
Those are my questions. Thank you.
Thanks, George. Do you have any other updates in the queue here you want to share?
I have one for SLO in Santa Barbara counties. Excuse me. Not specifically broadband related, but broadband is included. We've done a 2-county economic development strategy, a SEDS, through EDA. And I'm going to post the link in the chat because it is currently out for public review until October 12th. So welcome anybody's feedback specifically on any of the broadband related areas.
Is there any like anything high level you can share about the broadband piece, or we should just read?
Yeah, it is a comprehensive economic development strategy, so it's very broad. And maybe one thing to note on here is it's high level in all infrastructure areas. So anything that's talking about infrastructure, it's purposely broad and inclusive so that anybody applying, specifically like nonprofits that would be applying or cities that would be applying, would be able to see themselves in it. From a large variety of stakeholders. So it's purposely kind of high level, but the feedback we're looking for is that it's still specific enough for individual cities or again nonprofits to be able to see themselves in that and be clear enough to resonate in our county. So, or both counties. So again, maybe just as you're reading through it, recognize that it's purposely high level, but if there's an area that could be more specific, certainly welcome that type of feedback.
I saw that Jory joined us. We're just giving roundtable updates, Jory. Do you have anything that you wanted to share beyond what Will already shared?
Great. Good to see you all. I'm in a conference, so I'm going to stay on mute for a while.
Okay. Okay, I'm going to give a last call for roundtable. Anyone from the digital equity folks on the call? Let's see, our ranch Wi-Fi friends are here. Okay, moving on. And feel free to stop us at any point if there's anything that you want to discuss further or questions you have. For those of you who are part of public agencies, you would have received an email with a link to our BCPC municipal toolkit. For those of you who are not part of public agencies, we'll share this information out anyways because you may have some feedback, right? We put together this municipal toolkit as a compilation of several resources that are issued by organizations like the NTIA, CPUC, CETF, Caltrans, several different resources, and really still some basic recommendations of how public agencies can find their positioning within the conversation about broadband deployment, and then recommendations, policy recommendations, practices, organizational recommendations to help them help public agency staff support the ease of deployment. All right, we know that we're all in this together. Industry's got a part to play. Our local government officials and staff have a part to play. Our nonprofits have a part to play in closing the digital divide. And so this toolkit specifically targets the role that local governments can play. We worked with CETF to develop this and promote it, and we will be following up also with public agency staff to determine its usefulness to you, ask for feedback, and to help work through the best practices checklist that is part of the appendix, just to see if we can help support any additional revisions to current practices that might make it a little bit easier to get this infrastructure built on time within budget. We know that FFA funding and BEAD funding have a tight timeline. And so we all are going to need to work together to try to make this happen if we want to take advantage of the federal and state funding that has been allocated for our area. Some of the best practices, we cover permitting, policies that can be made, planning recommendations for participating in digital equity initiatives, such as improving adoption once the fiber or the, infrastructure is laid in your area. And we actually have provided links to agencies' broadband plans or master plans or some type of document that they've provided that is exemplary in this practice. So you don't have to reinvent what you're doing, right? We are hoping that we can start to learn from each other. We have sample language for things like dig once policy so that we don't have to start from scratch in every township and county and municipality. We can look to our neighbors and identify what works well and see how it can be adapted for the needs of our communities. I will, if I can, draw your attention to our website where it's posted. If you go to pcbroadband.org, click on resources. We have not added it into the drop-down menu, so you will be on a wild goose chase if you look on the drop-down. Just click on the resources tab, and then if you scroll down to the bottom, you can click on a link to the toolkit. We are happy to receive constructive feedback. So if you look through this and you say, you know what, you're missing something, or this, I know of a sample that you might want to include, we are very happy to make revisions to this document and repost it. So as a consortium, we are inviting and requesting your feedback if you have any to give. In the appendices here, we have it. We're calling it our additional resources. But I do want to draw your attention. There's a digital equity statement that can be included. Best practices checklist is what I mentioned we'll be going through. I believe that we are using that framework for the VCOG LATA grant also to assess municipal readiness for broadband deployment. The sample dig once policy is very thorough. It covers pretty much every aspect that you could ask. Great typo right here under exemptions, so we'll be fixing that. And then finally, sample broadband access resolution. And this is something that your electeds can look through and determine, you know, we think this is important for our community. We're on board. We're going to let this broadband access resolution guide our work. So that is our municipal toolkit. I'll pop the link here in the chat as soon as I have a second. Any initial reactions, questions, thoughts? No. Okay, forgive me while I have some dead air here, but I'm gonna pop the link into chat for you. Okay, so moving right on. Has anyone on the call, we're moving on to the California 5-year action plan. Has anyone on the call had a chance to check any of that out? This is related to BEAD funding. It's not easy to find on their website, on CPUC's website. It's buried somewhere in there. I actually had to email them to ask for a link so that we could easily access the PDF. The 5-year action plan, every state and territory who is eligible for BEAD funding is required to submit this 5-year action plan. It's basically their initial assessment and draft of the challenges, the assets, a gap analysis, and a basic overview of how they're planning to make a plan to implement BEAD funding. This draft is due, I want to say, in October. It's been posted since July. Public comment closed in August, and now they're going through the public comment and integrating any changes and updates that need to be made. And we'll submit the first draft of this 5-year action plan to NTIA, I believe, in October. This 5-year action plan informs the BEAD implementation plan, which is due December 27th from the state. And it is required in order to unlock the $1.8 billion of funding that's been allocated to the state of California. So some key takeaways from this. I encourage any of you who are interested to go ahead and read it. It's very thorough, long document. Let me see if I can pop the link in there for you. A lot of the information was drawn from processes that many of you participated in. All right, so they held 20 regional meetings. We had one in Santa Barbara. Many of you were there providing your input in person. Many of you completed the DEAN survey, the Digital Equity Ecosystem Mapping Survey. Many of you submitted individual surveys or at least sent them out to your communities. So this distills all the information and all the data that the CDT and CPUC have been collecting over the last year and have identified some key challenges. They're not surprising. We all already probably know about them. But the key challenges are funding. So having enough money, timing, doing this within the allocated time period of BEAD funding. So by 2027, the capacity. So the capacity of small ISPs, for example, to be able to execute on the requirements of a grant within the time period required, and also capacity of the workforce within the workforce. And then finally, permitting challenges. Several points throughout the document, they indicate that they realize permitting is not streamlined through one source. It takes multiple agencies to issue the relevant permits, and that time process and administrative work can be a challenge for actually deploying. Another primary challenge is the supply chain. So there's currently, or as of the writing of the report, a 9 to 12 month waiting period for fiber optic supply chain items. They are predicting an increase with BEAD. If you'll remember, or some of you are aware, there's is a part of the infrastructure law that requires a certain percentage of your materials to be made in the United States or sourced in the United States. My understanding is that the federal government has not budged on that. And so there are several large companies that are beginning to invest in developing supply creation aspects of the supply chain. Another challenge is topography and climate. So making things wildfire resistant, prioritizing underground builds versus wireline, navigating the topography. They estimate in this report that, you know, the places that will be unserved still by the time BEAD funding is around will be the hardest to reach, most expensive places. So again, no surprises in the challenges. They do list assets such as industry participation that is specifically called out as an asset in the state of California. There's been a great deal of participation in CASIF applications, particularly in the last year, and in public comment and in the collaborative process of data gathering. So thank you to the industry folks on the call also, because that is considered an asset in terms of the deployment. The public partnerships across California, Chris mentioned RCRC. That's a big one that's called out, but also CSAC, the League of Cities. Folks are really coming together because this has clearly been a major takeaway from the COVID-19 pandemic, is that digital equity is an issue in most of our communities. Any comments so far? Key gaps, the middle mile network, which we had a pretty good discussion about last meeting. The broadband deployment workforce, they have done a workforce analysis is part of this 5-year action plan and determined that California has about an average level of available trained workforce to conduct broadband deployment, and that there will likely be a need for an increased numbers in that space in order to execute in the timeline that's required here. Another gap is affordability. Of course, if you build it, people are still not aware or participating in ACP programs. So great call out to some of our industry partners that are even on this call. We're listed in that report as having programs that are actively engaging in outreach to make sure that their customers are aware of the affordability programs. and also to larger CBO organizations, as well as local organizations that are helping to raise awareness. And then another gap that was identified that has not been closed is participation of underrepresented communities in the rulemaking process and in the prioritization process. And so I believe that they are integrating into their environmental and social justice plan, the CPUC's environmental social justice plan, thoughts about how to connect into broadband deployment and development of rulemaking and prioritization of certain communities. The suggestion in the plan is that they will likely need to use a mixture of technologies to stay within their $1.8 billion budget. That's not just, not necessarily just straight brand new fiber cable. They estimated that $9.78 billion would be the cost to deploy to all unserved locations in California, 9.8 billion. We don't have that, obviously. The CPUC identified that they have about 4 billion if you include the BEAD funding and other allocated resources. And so there's a big gap there. So again, I think we talked about it earlier on the call. Carrie mentioned it, Chris mentioned it. We have to find the money to execute on all of this. And then also they're saying that they don't believe that they'll be able to complete the build to every unserved household during the timeline that BEAD allows for. And so there's some suggestion that that would be a challenge for us to successfully utilize the BEAD funding. Any questions at all? Any thoughts on this? We want to keep our eyes focused on BEAD. Okay. So we'll just keep tracking it and we'll keep you all updated. But again, recommend that you take the time to look through this document if you are interested and participate in the rulemaking if you have something to say. So finally, final update, and then we'll be here if you have some more conversation that you'd like to start. Use the last half hour of this meeting as an office hour if you're interested. In our digital equity update, our ACP enrollments over the summer did not increase dramatically. We do have a large increase in Ventura County. I believe in Ventura County that the Department of Social Services and possibly the Department of Education, maybe Julie can share with that, are active in sharing information about ACP and supporting families that need to enroll. We're still working in Santa Barbara County and San Luis Obispo County to get those integrated into the social services departments and the schools. Did anyone have any thoughts on why on ACP enrollments? Ventura County is a whole head and neck ahead of the other two counties in their enrollments.
I have a speculation, but it's uninformed or ill-informed or whatever. I just remember when we were rolling out ACP, we got the word out to the social services area of the county government, and there was a lot of interest talked about in understanding, nodding of heads. I suspect that when we have enrollees and signups, and there's been some communication to that constituency, that they're doing a great job in terms of outreach. I just believe that those people on CalFresh and other programs are getting the news and are taking full advantage of the connection that they can make online through the ACP program. And so I would, I can follow up and confirm that, but I know there was interest early on and recognition early on, and I just can only assume that that's what they closed that loop, and it's been beneficial to have done so.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I have noticed, looking at individual zip code enrollments, that there are certain zip codes where there may be a neighborhood or community group that is particularly active, because there are certain zip codes in Ventura County that are at 80 to 90% enrollment for eligible households. So I think it's also there's some grassroots work being done there as well. Well, in the last item that we'll share, we don't have a lot to share about this yet, but CETF has partnered with the BCPC on the FCC ACP outreach grant. CETF is the grantee, and we are sub-grantees. We have been asked to support 8 enrollment events across the 3 counties. The BCPC cannot actually hold these events because we don't have the staff capacity. So what we will be doing is partnering with local CBO, library, social services organizations to cover the costs of 8 enrollment events, including staffing costs. We have an allocation per event that we're able to provide to partners. We are going to need to target 100 ACP enrollments per event. So the target is 800 ACP enrollments across our 3 counties. That number seems small when you look at the percentage of increase, but really what we've found and what CETF based this number off of is the idea that for the 100 people that we document as having enrolled in ACP through this event, you know, there will be 2 or 3 other residences or households per person per enrollment that heard about it and did it themselves. So we're really looking for the ripple effect here. We are interested in partnering with organizations who want to train their own staff to become enrollment specialists and host an event through their organization, right? So this is not where we are bringing in staff to do an event for you. This is where the organization will be compensated to actually hold the event and use their own staff, train their own staff, and do outreach through their communities. We will be hosting an info session for interested partners. Malika and I are working on that information right now, and it will go out through our newsletter. So if you see that come through, we invite you to forward it to organizations that you think would be a good fit, and we'd be happy to talk to them about it. And that's it for us. That's our big update. Those are all of our big updates from the Broadband Consortium. We ran through this meeting in under an hour this time. So you have us on the books until for another half hour. If anyone wants to stay behind, we'd be happy to talk to you one-on-one, or if anyone has anything that they want to bring up now, please feel free to do it. Otherwise, thanks for joining us. Happy to have you all here today.
Thanks, Shelby.
Thank you.
Well, have a good day.
Thank you.
Have a
See ya.
great day.
Bye.
See you all today.